In order to introduce what a designer is, let's look at what is the comparison between Hero's Journey that Joseph Campbell, Jordan Peterson, Carl Jung talk about, and the relationship between that. Let me just give a quick version of the hero's journey. Hero lives in a city, a walled city that he knows. He goes out into the forest, which is unknown. He kills the dragon there, taking significant risks, and brings back the gold to the city to make the city better. That's the most concrete version of the hero's quest. So go ahead and type exclamation mark if you'd like to answer the question. What is the relationship between that you see between hero's quest and design process as described here? First up is going to be David. Go ahead and type exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom if you'd like to answer the question. David.
Yeah, I'd like to bring in the one difference, which is that the hero is depicted as a single person, a single consciousness, and we're talking about a group process. So you have to do some extra mapping because the group has to confront the chaos, has to deal with its own faults and lacks and the thing it's trying to repair or create in the world. So it has to slay a dragon, it has to wrestle back in reality this thing into reality, which would be bringing it back to the city. So I mean, there are ways you can map this, but the hero thing sort of forces you out into individuality. Now, each person in a group has to do their own little heroic personal trip, but bring it back in to reorganize in a way that the hero may not have to, as the individual conqueror, you have to unite in a way that is kind of special for design, maybe.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, David. Next up is going to be Charlie, followed by Maritza. Charlie.
Yeah, okay. I think there's a very big overlap, but I prefer the version of Joseph Campbell where the person goes out on this hero's quest and acquires a vision, okay? And he brings this vision back to his community that is very useful and helps to change the community, and so that there's a sense of a higher level of contribution rather than something so like gold. I mean, that doesn't really change the community, okay? But it could be a group doing this as well. It's the idea of bringing back something of genuine consequence that has the possibility of transforming the society that the person was in. And it sounds an awful lot like the design way. I think there's a lot of overlap.
Wonderful, wonderful. And in the story, the visions are considered to be gold. So gold is visions and visions are gold in the story, because those are all, the stories have concretes that dramatize consciousness values. Next up is going to be Maritza, followed by Joe and Mike. Maritza.
Joseph Campbell's is also the tale that's identified in the book here. In figure 2, there's actually a hero quest drawing, and it talks about the call to adventure and the ultimate boon. What I like about this representation is that it reminds us that when we use the word design here, we're actually talking about a design culture. We're not talking about simple designing. We're talking about an entire design culture. And this is an idea of the hero's quest explains to us the symbiotic relationship that has to exist between the individual and the community in order for us to be speaking about the overarching design culture, because you need both to have a culture. You have to strongly hold your individuality in order to leave and go on this quest. But you have to also have a strong respect for the community, because you must return and bring back this gift to the community for the enrichment of the culture in a total. And it's a beautiful dance between individual, and community. And what it points out to you is this idea of, it's again the internal and external, the balance required for just a cohesive element. And it's the integration of the parts and the whole that we see here in the prelude. It's just a different way of shining a light for that requirement. Like, you always get back to the whole. So we're going to leave as individuals because the quest requires that individual action. But the true value is not seen until that individual comes back to the whole. And I just think that it meshes beautifully.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maritza. When we actually discussed Hero's Quest, one of the really amazing questions that people had asked, which still remains with me, that and its discussion, what happens when you bring back the elixir of life and the community rejects it because they're not used to it? So how do you sell, the design, the good design that you've come up with after all hard work? How do you transmit it within the community? Wonderful. Next up is going to be Joe, followed by Mike and Jyoti. Joe.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially the point that I was going to say, is that the Hero's Quest has to essentially involve the collective, because if it doesn't, then in this case, it won't be accepted. So, I mean, it's kind of a process that is in a way that was kind of many times that when the hero comes back, their gift, so to speak, isn't accepted. So it's an integrated process, an iterative process that you're actually continuing to learn. I hadn't read the chapter where they referred to the hero's journey, but I did notice the graphic on it, and it's very similar. It's also about the idea of action. Like, so what types of actions are you taking in order to actually create something for the community that they will accept? So then you're also inquiring, and that's the inquiry in action, I think, is part of that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joe. Now, next up is, Ambika had also pointed out the same thing. What do you do if the community resists everything you have to offer? Excellent point. Next up is Mike, followed by Jyoti. Mike.
The hero's journey is how to accomplish the task with under conflicting requirements, limited resources, limited knowledge, maximum uncertainty, maximum risk, and a poorly written spec that doesn't even define what the customer wants, under disagreement between all the stakeholders as to what you should deliver.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
And many of the people on the screen, from seeing the smiles, have had to deliver under those circumstances.
Yes. Thank you. Next up is Jyoti.
So, Shrikant and Ambika, you already made a point, and that's what I was going to say. So my answer to your question is, hero should not be going out to get the vision by himself. He has to first convince the people in the group that there is something out there that we need to go get that, and mentally prepare their mind, because the group is very comfortable. That's their comfort zone. They have been in that comfort zone for so many years. They're not going to buy into that vision. So the effort has to be made by the hero to convince the group that let's go, I will go and bring something, and let's make a change here. Let's get out of here. Let's do something different. That will be the only way it will be possible. But if hero leaves by himself and brings the vision back, it's not going to work.
Thank you. Thank you, Jyoti. Ambika, what's your answer?
It just came to me when Jyoti was speaking about sending the community out. And so what I thought was, you have this big basket of a whole bunch of different balls of different colors, and you throw them in different directions and let everybody in the community go find their own answer, because you have to do your own soul searching too, so that you can bring that fire to the community. And then when they come back, and some people will have the same kind of experience of, I learned this, I learned this, I learned this. this is what I felt, so then we can create something together. Otherwise, they're going to be burning all of us witches again.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great observation. Thank you. Next up is Aya.
Yeah. While I know this is not a political debate group, when we were talking about bringing something back to the community, and the hero has to do that, I was thinking about the situation in Afghanistan.
We are not. This is not a political group, Aya.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I was thinking we try to bring this democracy there, and then look what happened. So I just felt like sometimes things are not meant to happen
Sure.
easily.
Thank you. Next up is Laurie.
So I had a thought on what Ambika was just saying. So sometimes I think that the hero's quest is to go out to the community and learn what everyone needs, and then sort of conglomerate it into a vision.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, excellent point. And in some ways, the community itself is a forest. In the sense that what you're doing, the hero's quest includes understanding the community, figuring out how to, just like understanding the forest and figuring out how to get some from forest, you have to also do the same thing with the community. There's a lot of things unknown. It's a very complex network of things. Thank you. The next question goes